Hey guys, welcome to another LevelLogic video. Today I want to go through something that a few of you in the Discord have been asking about, and that is to look at the difference between internal and external zones that SEIZ draws and how they relate into getting into reversal style trades versus continuation trades. So first we're just going to start off with some basic stuff. Just to get a good understanding of what SEIZ is actually drawing, and then later on it will all make sense. So SEIZ is basically giving you a top-down analysis because it's drawing high time frame candle zones on the low time frame chart. So the idea is that it's trying to show you where the higher time frame is likely to form its high or low without you actually having to change to the higher time frame. And obviously it's all based on that embedded data as well. So here we can see, so there's only, I've put some candles here just so you can, it makes it a little bit clearer. But here I've got SEIZ on the daily, okay? But I've got the chart set to the 5 minute, okay? So these zones are calculated on the embedded data for the daily, and they're projecting off the previous day. So basically what we can see here is this new day, it only has a few options, okay? It can only do four things. It can either make an internal low or an external low, an internal high or an external high. There's no other options. It has to do one of those four things, okay? So that's what SEIZ then calculates. It calculates if it is going to make an internal high, these are the levels it's going to get to based on a percentage and the previous data points. If it's going to make an internal low, these are the levels it's likely to get to based on the embedded data as well. If it's going to get external, that means it's going above the previous day's high, so it is external to that high, and these are the levels it's likely to extend to. Conversely, if it goes below previous day low, then these green zones down here are where it's going to extend to based on the previous embedded data. Yeah, for it to make its low if it extends past the previous day low. Okay, so just to go through it again in an even more simple way, I've just drawn these candles here. So this can be any time frame. It can be a daily candle, 4-hour candle. It doesn't really matter. It all works the same way. So here you can see we've broken above the previous candle's high. So that means that this high here is external to this candle's range. Okay, so that's an external high. Here you can see we've broken this candle's range low. So now this low is going to be external to this candle's range. Okay, so that's an external low. So if we go back to what was in the SEIZ video, we can see here, this is how the data points line up for external high data distribution. So when we break above that previous candle's range high, you can see from all historical data, this is where the highs end up, okay? So you can, most of the time they end up close to this previous high, and they tail off exponentially in data points as they move higher, okay? So it's, once they keep going and going and going, it becomes increasingly less likely that the high is going to be made higher and higher again, okay? So it's more likely it's going to form its high soon. Okay, so conversely here you can see our internal low and internal high. So the high might have broken out of the previous high and become external, but our low here is internal, okay? It hasn't broken the previous low, so it's internal to that previous candle's range. And same with the high, okay? It's internal to that previous candle's range. It hasn't broken out of it, so we call that an internal candle high. And you can see the distribution for that is slightly different. So it can form nearly anywhere within the previous candle's range, but there are a few key levels, like you can see the 50th percentile there is quite a key level, and some other lines that line up in these in this data distribution. But we can get the percentiles of where it's less and less likely to go higher to get that internal high forming. Now, a lot of you might be saying, well, that's great, I understand that, but how does it help me then on the chart, and how do I know what to use? Well, we can see here, so this is a daily candle chart, but again, it can be any time frame. This could be a 4-hour candle chart, it doesn't matter. But what we can see here is what price often does is takes external. So we take liquidity from the previous candle, sweeping the low. And after we do that, we tend to go internal. Okay. Sweep, external, red, internal, internal, internal. This is a trend. On a lower time frame, this is a trend. Okay. So this has gone over 1, 2, 3, 4 days of trending. Again, we've gone external to internal. We've swept again. We've gone external to internal to internal to internal. We've gone external, internal, 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 internal. Okay, so you can see how these days where they're trending, if you've seen that you've taken some external range liquidity and got to an external SEIZ low, then maybe it's a good idea to look for an internal to get that continuation. So you can see that there's two ways you can set up trades. You can either set it up based on this high time frame idea of going external, and you're looking at a reversal from we're going down, down, down to reversing the other way. Or you can look at continuation trades where we've already done that reversal and then we're starting to continue, and the next days are basically holding the previous day's low whilst breaking previous day's high. Okay, so if we look at that daily chart that I just showed you down on the 1 hour chart with the daily SEIZ on, okay, so these are 1 hour candles, but we've got the daily SEIZ on, and I've turned some drawing aspects of SEIZ off just because I don't want it to be confusing at this stage. I just want you to be able to clearly see what's going on. Okay, so SEIZ draws external lows as these green zones, and it draws internal lows as these blue zones. Okay, so you can see on the daily we have taken previous day low and gone external. Then we have gone internal to the blue zones. Here we've gone external. Then we've gone to the blue zones. Internal, internal, internal. Okay, we've had a bit of a downtrend pullback. We've taken a daily low. We've gone external, and then we've held it and gone internal. Swept again. Then we've gone internal, internal, internal. And you can see, even though I'm on the 1 hour chart and we're going to go even lower in time frame, you can see that we're having these daily trends. Okay, so they're big trends on the lower time frame when they're actually only a few candles on the daily time frame. But you can see how SEIZ can capture the start of the trend, so you can go for a reversal trade in external zones, or if you've already got that, you can then go for internal zones for continuation. Okay, so now if we look at the 5-minute chart, okay, so I've still got SEIZ set to the daily, but now we're on the 5-minute chart, so you can see a little bit more of the fine detail of the action that's happening throughout the day. And I've also turned on some more information on SEIZ to make it make a bit more sense. So you can see here I've got the median lines on, and I've turned on the percentile zones. Okay, so how far the daily low is likely to go. Okay, so here we've had our sweep of the previous day low. Okay, so potentially a reversal. So from the external zones, and what I typically like to do is have look below medians or higher external zones for reversals, where I know that it's less and less likely to go much further down. You can then frame your reversal trade, okay, to continue higher. If that's too risky and you don't want to do that, then you can wait for this to form on the higher time frame, and then the next day you can look for continuation trades internally to that previous range and not taking out the previous low. So you can see here we've come up through Asia, making this internal liquidity. Then at a key time at 10 o'clock, we've come down and we've nicely tapped that internal daily median, and we've continued up from there. Same again, we've come down, we're internal to this previous day's range, and we've nicely tapped the median there for a continuation. Same again, and same again. Okay, so now let's add a little bit more information of what SEIZ is telling you, specifically at these lows at the time, okay? So the dashboard is incredibly helpful because it tells you what's going on a whole range of different time frames, okay? And there is no perfect time frame. We know that a higher time frame has more impact over a lower time frame. So what we want to try and do is set up higher time frame trades on the lower time frame chart and combining all that data together. And that can be quite complicated in a multi-time frame environment, but that is what the SEIZ dashboard is trying to simplify for you. So if we look at each of these lows of the day, where we've come into these medians, okay, we already know we've gone external to internal and we're doing all of that. But if we look at them individually, we can see that the lows at this point are on the lower time frames are getting to their higher percentile external zones, okay? The same again here, higher percentile external zones. So on the lower time frames, we're sweeping lows, we're taking lows, we're trending down, and then we're looking for that reversal, okay, at the higher percentiles of these lower time frames. And when I say lower time frames, I mean lower to the daily, to then get into the continuation internal of the daily. So you can see on all of these, I've got on, so apart from this one, which is our reversal day, on all these internal ones, I'm actually internal on the daily, 50th percentile blue, okay? But on the lower time frames, I'm lighting up green because I'm external on all the other lower time frames to the daily. And that's a really good sign for doing a continuation trade for the higher time frame, okay? Which you can set up this however you like. Like you could do a 12-hour internal and still look for external on lower time frames than the 12-hour, or you could look at 4-hour internal and look at external times on time frames lower than the 4-hour. But this is giving you some confluence in that if these sort of, 5, 6, 7-hour time frames are getting to the point where they don't have much left in their interval to go, and you can see we're approaching the end of the day here as well, then it's getting less and less likely that these time frames are going to go much lower, and we're also internal to the previous day. So it's a good sort of area where you can then frame a continuation. So adding all the data back into SEIZ and showing everything, now we can see an interesting thing form here as well. So what tends to happen is if on the higher time frame, if we're internally holding lows and trending in one direction, well then typically we're obviously also breaking highs, okay? So that means that if we're breaking highs, we're going to external zones. So you can get in these internal daily zones with all the other confluences, obviously, and then target using SEIZ the external zones, okay? Because this 25th, if we're internal and we're expecting now we're trending and we're going to go external, then getting to that 25th percentile, you have a 75% chance of getting there, right? Because if it's 25th percentile, then 75% of the data points went above that area before they closed out the day and made the high of the day. Okay, so you can see here, internally we're taking our trade and we've gone external. Internally we're taking our trade and we're going external. Internally taking our trade, going external. Internally taking our trade, going external. So you can see you only need one of these a week or even one of these a month. They're like enormous trades. If you spend the time to frame these correctly in what the data is telling you to do, then you're getting in on these really, really nice moves. With a whole heap of data to back you up. And obviously you have all the other indicators as well, like you've got more and you've got hyper and mirror, which are giving you the combined confluence at these areas also. But these are the types of trades you want to try and get into. Okay, so taking it back to that daily chart that I showed you in the beginning, you can see that we're obviously trending up on the daily, and you know that we're breaking all-time highs at the moment. So we're trending up and then we're having little pullbacks. We're trending up, having little pullbacks. But when we start to trend again, we're then holding previous day's lows and breaking previous day's highs. So you can see this 5-day period here is just these 5 candles up here where we've taken previous day low. We've retested a previously untested candle. Okay, so it's still helpful to have points of interest as well, where you're going to retest for especially for things like reversals. And then we get our continuations, where we can frame that on the lower time frame using our external percentile zones on the lower time frames as we're hitting the internal percentile zones on the higher time frame, like the daily. So I think what is, I guess, confusing some people is that you need to decide on, are you trying to target a reversal trade on the higher time frame, like the daily, or are you trying to get a internal continuation trade on the higher time frame? So essentially, that would mean that if you're looking for a reversal trade, you want everything to be external, even the daily, okay? So everything to be sort of further than the median and in the higher percentile zones for an external day to get a reversal. Or if you're looking at continuations, then you want internal higher than the median on the higher time frames, but you want external higher percentiles on the lower time frames. So because then you're sort of giving yourself more and more confidence that price isn't going to go further on that higher time frame internally if you've got external on the lower time frames. Okay. That's it. I hope that all makes sense. If anything still wasn't clear, drop a comment below and I'll try and clear it up in a future video. If you don't already have the indicators, then head on over to LevelLogicIndicators.com and you can check out all the information there. But yeah, we've got the Discord running as well, so hope to see you in there. Thanks, guys.